Hi, loves, and welcome to Why Am I Like This Wednesday? So, it's been a while. I've had a emotional roller coaster of the past 2 months. I am still adjusting to the loss of my dad. If I'm being honest, I don't think you ever officially accept it or get used to it. I think you just learn how to live with it. So, this is me learning how to live with it. I have ups and downs. My emotions are just constant roller coaster, if I'm being honest. I am really emotional a lot of the times. I'm really sad and depressed a lot of the times. But what we are going to talk about today is trying to manage your depression and mental health while being a parent. And I say that because I think one of the hardest things that I've ever had to face is knowing that I've damaged my children in some form because I didn't take care of my mental health before I had children. Nobody told me that that was like a requirement. It's like, it isn't, but it should be. And I say that because we don't need to continue to damage children because we haven't worked on ourselves. But then again, nobody told me that I needed to be in a better headspace in order to be able to truly be a parent. What I want to talk about while you get ready with me is this process that I'm going through in working on my mental health while being a parent. So, first, let me go ahead and do this. But this is like one of my favorite things to use. All of the adults around me were products of their environment, which is a thing. I think some people try to take away from that without recognizing that just because you made it out and you did great. See, there's not that much hair. Can you see it? Doesn't mean everybody has the same ability. Some people, everyone's brain works differently, and we could grow up in the same house and be twins and have the same parents and be attended to exactly the same, and we're going to still have different perspectives of our life. This is my other little friend. Can you see it? I should be sponsored, but I'm not yet, at least. Let me get a little more hair and work on what's going on here. But it has a little fan that goes on, so I hope you guys can hear me through this. I'm not trying to do anything fancy, just straighten it, because I don't have the time or energy to do all of that right now. But I do want to talk about growing up with adults that are mentally and emotionally unavailable to really be a parent. Now, let me start off with my grandmother, so you can slightly see the cycle, which I think is important. If this is something that you're working on, try to find out as much about your parents and your parents' lives. Not to excuse it, because there's a certain time in our lives where we have to take accountability for our own actions and our behavior. And if we're given the right tools, which some of us are not, and some of us don't even know where to look for it. Oh, I gotta comb through my hair. Let me tell you, when you have curly hair, that's saying a lot. So my grandmother is a product of being raised by a very mentally verbal and physically abusive individual. I don't know what his life was like. When I've asked my grandmother how her grandparents were, she really had no memory. So I don't know if they were still alive or if they had passed when she was young, but there was no real memory on them. So the furthest I could go back is my grandmother's father and her mother. My grandmother's father was not a nice person. He was a professor at I believe, a university in Puerto Rico. Okay, so my grandmother's father was a professor at a university in Puerto Rico, or at a high school. See, honestly, I can't even remember. And he ended up having an affair on her mother with a student. But I know she was like young. My grandmother told me she was really young. But I don't know her age. And ended up leaving her mom. My grandmother said she became unmanageable for her mom to take care of, so her mom sent her away to be with her dad, which was hard for my grandmother. She recognized it, later on after she had kids and she was older, but she felt like her mom just like abandoned her. And of course she felt like her father abandoned her because he left the family because he had an affair. Mind you, my grandmother was around like 12 years old at this time. My grandmother's mother died right before she got her period. So everything that my grandmother should have been able to experience with a mother, or at least someone who cared for her, she never got to experience. And her father's new wife and my grandmother's father's wife, from my grandmother's perspective, treated her like Cinderella, pretty much. So my grandma was just so miserable and would get beat a lot by her father that once she was old enough to leave the house, which I think was like 17, that's actually not young in Puerto Rico, she fell in love with the first person who made her feel special and married him and left. And that is just a small portion of her story, but that individual was verbally and physically abusive, and after being forced to have 5 children to finally give him his son, which was the last one, my grandmother divorced him shortly after. My grandmother wanted to have her tubes tied, but back in the day in Puerto Rico, you have to have your husband's permission. So my grandmother had it done in New York. She had it done in New York without his permission while pregnant, or at least that's how she explained it to me. And she said they told me I could possibly lose the baby, but I didn't care. And she didn't care because, the last 2, I believe, or 3 children she had was forced on her. He was not, like I said, he was not a good person. And remember, back in the day, men were allowed to force their wives to have sex with them, and it was not considered rape because women were considered property. So that's her young life, okay? My grandfather, my biological grandfather, I don't know what his life was like. I just knew that his mother was not all there, and he had a sibling that wasn't all there. And a lot of the mental health issues that are in our family are because of my biological grandfather's side of the family. On my grandma's side of the family, most of them are actually pretty successful financially. Mentally and emotionally, I'm pretty sure they all have their own issues. So imagine growing up in a house, and this is me now telling you my story from my mom, and just a little bit that she's told me, because she hasn't, sometimes she just remembers bits and pieces. She watched her father beat her mother for years at a young age. When my grandmother finally left my grandfather, my mother and her siblings were trained, because my grandmother was a single mother, to have the house cleaned, dinner made, and her cafecito waiting for her in the morning with a piece of bread and cheese, because that's what they do in Puerto Rico. And they woke up early and had it done. My aunt, which is the oldest out of all of them, pretty much had to take care of all of them. My mom and her are actually kind of close. She is my favorite aunt, and it's because she was given the responsibility of, taking care of everybody, which, can I just say, being the oldest child, because I am, that is not fun at all. So there was a certain time that my aunt was old enough to leave, and the moment she could, she rushed to New York to live with her dad. But it wasn't to live with her dad. It was really because she knew he wouldn't do much for her. She just needed to get away so she can be responsible on her own. So that's when my mom decided to go to New York as well to be with her big sister. Which, if I'm being honest, my aunt was nice enough to say, that's fine, you can come. But there's a part of me, and I've never asked her, there's a part of me that thinks, like, I bet she thought to herself, can you just leave me alone? I want to just take care of myself. Because I know what that feels like. I've never asked her. I should ask her. But she's also, like, she's a pretty good big sister. She's made a few, mistakes that she definitely regrets. And I only say that because she's told me. She allowed, she showed her sister the party life in New York, which in the 70s was pretty risque. So, my mom has pretty much been on her own since she could remember. My mom, when she went to New York, she went because she wanted a father. And my grandfather, who my grandmother married after, was not really a father figure to her. He really just wanted my grandmother. And he's admitted that to me years ago before he passed. That he loved my grandmother. He knew that she came with baggage, like without saying baggage. But they were getting old enough to where they were going to leave and it was just going to be them. But little did he know, my grandmother continued to take care of her kids until she couldn't mentally anymore. She has dementia. So that's just who my grandma is. That's who she's always been. She's very codependent. And I'm sure that's where I get my codependency from. Which really sucks. So my mom came to New York with the idea that her father was going to love her and take care of her. She was 13. Do you know what he told her? You're very beautiful, and a lot of older men like you. The smart thing to do would be to find an old man who wants to take care of you. You don't need school. That's what her father told her, okay? My mother, being the type of person that she is, she wasn't going to question him. She wasn't going to ask for the love that she expected to have. She just took it as, okay, so you really don't want to be a father. And then she was with her sisters and did her own thing. Really hurt the entire time. Like, really hurt. My mom was devastated. Even when she talks about it now, she starts to cry because it hurts her. She needed and wanted a father, and he did not want to be a father. If I'm being honest, I don't think he ever wanted to have kids. Or maybe he wanted them but didn't know how to be a father to them because he probably didn't have the best role model. Which is just annoying. But you can't expect people to understand the damage they will do to their children by having children because the idea of having children sounds good. And I feel like that was their mentality, to be honest. I feel like all of my family had kids without fully understanding what it was like to be a parent because they didn't have the best role models, if that makes sense. So my mother finally came to California with my grandmother, and they all lived out here for a while. Then my grandmother went back to Puerto Rico, and while my mom was out here, she met my dad. And my father, at the time, was like a surfer dude, skater dude, artist in LA. And they were living the fast life. They both did drugs. I don't know if they were like extremely serious drugs, but they both did drugs. And then I was born. Mind you, my mom had me with the idea of, oh, having a baby is so cute. Because my aunt, which is my mom's oldest sister, was out here also, and she had a baby. My mom met her, and my mom told me that she met her and thought to herself, oh my God, I want one. I want one. Like, it's that easy. Like, you're shopping and you're like, hey, I want one of those. Yeah. So that's how I was conceived. But this was after my mother had already had multiple abortions because she didn't want kids at first, which I don't blame her. I don't feel that my mom should have ever had kids, if I'm being honest. But she has tried to be the best mother that she could be, considering her life. So I definitely give her credit for that. See, it doesn't take long to do my hair. My thing is the cycle. My grandmother felt that for a while she had like an evil stepmother. So she wasn't going to learn how to be a parent by that person. Her father, not the best role model. So she wasn't going to learn how to be a parent or what kind of parent or husband to find because he wasn't the best either. So there's that. Then my mother's example of what parents should be was a hustler and a provider, because that's what my grandmother was. So my mother did that for us in any way she possibly could. Mind you, she was not given a high school education. She didn't go past junior high, and that was because, well, she wanted to go to be with her father, and he told her to just find someone to take care of you. So she only knew to use her beauty as her asset to do well. Maybe I can put this way so I can do my makeup. I know I look horrible and I sound horrible. I'm going to use my e.l.f. primer. See, I still feel like I had something on my hair. I don't think I washed out the deep conditioner that much. So my mom didn't have a good role model. My mom's mom didn't have a good role model. My mom's mom didn't have a good role model. So how was she expected to be a good role model if she never had good role models? Does that make sense? So then how was I supposed to be a good role model for my children if my role models didn't have good role models? Does that make sense? My life was being bounced around as a child. My mom wanted me, my mom had me, then my mom didn't know what to do with me. So I was left with a lot of people, different people. Well, not a lot of different people. I was left with my dad's sister, then my aunt, which is my mom's oldest sister. I remember being with them more than anything, and then my grandmother, and then of course my grandmother and grandfather on my dad's side. So that was my life. For like my first year of life, I was just being tossed, and not tossed, but just left anywhere, everywhere. And I'd like to think that that's probably why I have abandonment issues. I continued to be abandoned as a child. I didn't stay at one place for too long. And how are you supposed to feel wanted or loved when you just continue to see yourself going from one place to another? So how do you raise children when you don't know what being raised looks like? You kind of have to teach yourself. And I did. And it was hard. And I'm still learning. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you've had a life with a lot of trauma and a lot of things that maybe even you don't understand, maybe don't be hard on yourself. Maybe try to understand that that was just the life that you were given. You were not given a choice, I know. Because believe me, that wouldn't have been mine. But you are given the ability to show yourself leniency and understanding and compassion, because you're learning all of this for the first time. And there's going to be trial and error. As much as that sucks, there's going to be trial and error. Okay, let's try this again. Because I did not like the way my face was feeling. Is this a broken? No. Let's put that over there. See, this is a really good primer too. Minimize pores. at Smashbox. However, I'm going to wash my face after. So I don't need to have like a very dramatic look for today. Oh, I like this one too. It's part of the Glow recipe. I love this brand actually. So I'll put that after that and that. Okay. So I'm going to use toner first because I just washed my face. Oh my gosh, this smells so good. It is the Ultra Tonic Watermelon Extract Facial Toner. Dew of the Gods. I got it in my Ipsy bag. So, and then I'm going to do a little bit of my, I forget the brand this is. Oh, Bobbi Brown. I have a little one. I need to get a big one. But this has lasted me a year, so I only use it when I'm prepping my skin. To do makeup. I have an eye cream too, but I have no idea where I put that. So let's go ahead and talk about what we were just talking about. The vicious cycle of continuing to have children without fully being prepared mentally to have children. I do not think that I was ready to be a mother when I had children. I had my first child at 25, second at 27, and my third at 34. All my kids are absolutely amazing. I am beyond blessed and grateful for them. However, if someone would have told me it was not important to have a child at a young age, that what was more important was to be mentally stable before having my child, I would have waited till I was at least 30. And I say that because having my first child at 25 was something that I thought I wanted to do because I wanted my child and I to not be so far apart in age, because my grandmother raised me, my grandparents raised me. So technically, if they would have had me, they would have had me in their early 40s. And as much as I absolutely love them, and I am very grateful and blessed that I was raised very differently than how their children were raised, because they were almost given another chance to try again, I always felt sad that my grandmother was too old to do certain things with me. She was in her early 60s and there was just certain things that she couldn't do. And I was neglected a lot because she was still taking care of her adult children. They still had a lot of their own issues, so she helped them out a lot. And because of that, I was always made to feel guilty that I was raised by my grandmother and grandfather, because I did have a better life because I was raised by them. However, no one paid attention to the fact that I was neglected a lot because their parents were still being taken care of, even though they were adults. So I was why did I think that I could raise children when mentally I still had so much work to do? Like, Who told you to do that, Brandy? Who? Why? Well, because I saw my mom did it and she didn't do great. So I thought to myself, I would do better. And that was not the smartest move on my end. I do not regret my children at all. However, I do wish that I would have had them later on. And I say that because both my children's father and I needed to mature a lot mentally, and we needed to grow up a lot mentally. And I feel that I have affected each one of them in a different way because I needed to work on myself. And I am just now getting to that place where I'm working on myself, and there's so many things that I need to work on that they have suffered because of it. I feel horrible. I feel like a bad mom. And my kids will tell me all the time, especially when they're around my family, how grateful they are that I am working on myself, and that actually they always tell me, Mom, how did you turn out so normal and your family is so messed up? And then I look at my kids and think to myself, this is normal? Who? This is not the normal I want it to be normal. I promise you that. Yeah. I feel that my kids have experienced things that they shouldn't have had to experience because their mom was still not all there mentally. And I hear a lot of people will tell me, like, you did the best that you could. Give yourself credit. You know, you're not a bad mom. You love your kids and you have good intentions, which all are absolutely true. However, I still wish I would have waited, because I feel that my kids deserved better. They deserved to have a mother who wasn't so messed up emotionally and mentally. I made, which I guess wouldn't necessarily be looked at as the biggest mistake, but I gave the mom I needed to my children instead of the mom that they needed. And that's not fair to them. I thought that if I just treated my kids the way I always wished that I was treated, they're going to turn out great. And I think my mentality would have been different had I worked on my mental health before ever having kids. And that's why I think it's so important to work on your mental health before you have kids, because your thought process is different. You don't think, oh, I'm just going to be a better parent than my parents were. You're just ready to have kids when you're ready to have kids. If you're ready to have kids when you're ready to have kids, you should be fine, right? But there's also that thought process, at least for me, where I think to myself, is anybody ever really ready to have children? No matter how much work you've done on yourself? I mean, if you're being honest with yourself, are you? And I say that because a lot of us think that because we're a better version than our parents were, and they gave us a better life than they had, that we're going to be better than they were. And I don't think that's always the case. I've been learning a lot that you're a product of your environment. And also that the way our brain develops, there's a certain stage of our lives when we're younger where we learn from what we see. Genetics, and I do not feel all there right now. Like I don't, and I don't know why, but I still want to do this. But I feel like this video is going to be all over the place. So I apologize in advance. I guess I have to get back into my groove, if that makes any sense, because I don't know what's going on. I'm not great with eyebrows. So like when I concentrate, I gotta concentrate. And my daughter always tells me, Mom, it's supposed to be faded in the front. You're not supposed to make it so dark. But if I'm being honest, what my eyebrows looked like to me when I was younger was all one color. Ooh. It's just now that I'm older, they're a little faded because my eyebrows are thinning, which is so weird. Like, come on. As moms, we lose enough when we're pregnant and we have kids. Like, you got to take my eyebrows away? Really? Who can I talk to about that? Because I don't think that's fair. Now, foundation. Actually, no. I don't know if I should do eyeshadow. Probably not right now. I could do it later and do another video later because I have things to do today. You're supposed to apply the eyeshadow quickly. So maybe I'll just add a very light color that I can add to later. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that, but like a very light color. So let me set the primer. So we're gonna use our finger. My kids are amazing. I'm grateful to be their mother. I am still dealing with a lot of depression. So I have been diagnosed with severe depression, complex PTSD, OCD, and anxiety disorder. That's me in a nutshell. And I'm pretty sure I had all of those issues before becoming a mother, because my complex PTSD is based on my childhood. And that, my loves, was not a walk in the park. I had to be the adult almost all the time. Which, when you're a child, is so unfair. So having all of those diagnoses, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. So what is someone who is not diagnosed yet supposed to do when they have children? Try to keep them from being just as messed up as me? Huh. Well, I think I've succeeded in that, but I've messed them up in different ways. So my kids aren't messed up in ways of having addicts as parents or being sexually molested by a parent or being left alone or given to other people at different times for long periods of time by their parents. So my kids, from what they've told me, is they do trust me, which, can I just say, as a person with trust issues, knowing that my children trust me is an amazing feeling. I guess I'm just going to use 2 colors right now, or I guess it would be end up 3. I'm using the same brush for all of them. And like I said, it's just because I'm not doing a full eyeshadow look. Like I'm trying to learn how to be a mother still, even though I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 10-year-old. How to be a mother without fully damaging my children and still being able to work on myself in the process. That's what I'm currently working on. And can I just say that it is very difficult. I'm using a little shimmer. I just used everything from the James Charles palette. There's definitely going to be a part 2 to this because I don't feel like I got to talk about it the way I wanted to, but we're already at like almost an hour, and that is ridiculous. Yeah, we're just gonna leave it that way. It doesn't look great. It doesn't look bad. It's just not really what I wanted. It's gonna bug me. I'm gonna want it to be better than what it is. Then I'm gonna sit here forever doing this because another thing I'm working on with my mental health is being a perfectionist. We're gonna leave it. It's gonna kill me to leave it too. I'm gonna tell you that right now. So the colors that I used, and this, like I said, it's the James Charles palette. It doesn't go the other way, right? No, it goes this way. I used Canvas, Punch Me, in that order, Mary, and then Sister. Canvas, Punch Me, Mary, Sister. Funny how that just, I don't even know how, yeah, I don't. The other palette, and I'm tempted to use one of these dark browns. Okay, I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm gonna leave it alone. I think it's important to recognize things that you need to work on yourself as an individual, so it does not trickle down to your children. And although we know that it's almost impossible to shield them from everything, I think it's important to shield them from as much as you can within reason and being realistic. Example. I know I am damaging my kids in some way because I watch a lot of true crime. And how I am damaging them is anytime I see something that has to do with sex trafficking or kidnapping, I send them something to their phone that explains to them what happened and how the parents were and how the parents felt and what was going through their mind. And my kids will tell me why. They've only started telling me this now, like, Mom, you're fine, like, you're crazy, why do you always think this? But that's something that I don't want to stop doing. And it may not, like, why do you want to traumatize your kids? I don't want to. But I've watched enough true crime to know that I rather prepare them for what could be out there than my children be naive to what is out there. And I say that because there's a lot of ugly out there. A lot of ugly out there. And so many kids that have been taken, kidnapped, or even manipulated by older people, or even someone their age who's just really good at manipulating. I want my kids to be aware of what's out there and just be open-minded. And I don't want them to be naive. And I say that because I'm guilty of being naive. I've made a lot of poor choices because I didn't have anybody to show me not to make the poor choices. They just told me, but without a full explanation, if that makes sense. So I was told, don't trust strangers. But sometimes some of the strangers, or people that I considered strangers when I was small and my mom would leave me with them, were the nicest people to me. So at a very early age, I became very trustworthy too young. And my mom used to date guys, and my mom would say, oh, it's okay, it's my friend. And the guys were really nice to me. And I will say, they never did anything to me, and they were really nice to me. So meeting a complete stranger that I didn't know be really nice to me didn't scare me, because I had met a lot of strangers that were nice to me that didn't scare me. I mean, the person I did know, which was my father, did things to me. I was naive, oblivious, and aware at the same time, which are just not good patterns to have. At least I don't think. None of those were a flex, for sure. So what I'm saying is how important it is to work on yourself before having children. And if you already have children, work on yourself and continue to work on yourself and help them work on themselves, because most likely and more often than not, we've affected our children in some way unintentionally. And I say that because I know that any damage that I've done to my kids, when I've had them in therapy and they're still in therapy and I find out the things that they talk to me about, it breaks my heart, because my intention was for them to never understand or know what it was like to have my life, and somehow I managed to make sure they didn't have my life, but they had a different one in a way that I don't even fully understand, because my life wasn't like that. Does that make sense? Like, they're stressing over social media and being around people in school that are bullies and not so nice people, when I didn't experience that at all, if I'm being honest. So I don't know what it's like to not stick up for myself, because I did stick up for myself with kids. I didn't stick up for myself with my family. Ooh, I just hit that. Which I'm learning now how to do that. And I've taught my kids how to do that, but it took them a while. I never do this, but I'm going to. Because my daughter left these up here. So you're supposed to hold it for a while. I don't understand these things. I used them when I was younger, but then I used to pinch my skin on the side. And then after that, I was like, see, it ain't that serious. So now when I do it, I still get scared. How do you get it to completely curl up? Is there like a hairspray I could use to get it to stick up? And why do I need to open my mouth when I'm doing it? I don't know. Now there is another little gem that I got from my Born Ruby. I mean to have it go so low. I did not mean to do that. So if you are in the process of working on yourself, make sure to do so with your children. Don't just work on yourself and leave your kids hanging. And I say that because it's helped me recognize things that I wasn't even working on in therapy with my kids that they're working on in their therapy. And they'll point it out to me. And because I'm in therapy, I'm more open to receiving the information, if that makes sense. I guess I feel like I just want to put on a lip gloss. So did you follow? Did you get what I was saying? I guess today was more of a get ready with me and listen to what I have to say. Instead of a full-blown session, because there's a lot of things about this same topic that I do want to talk about. But I'm definitely not letting this go to waste. Because, no. That wouldn't make sense. Let me see. Okay, let me see. I have like 5 different lip liners here. I'm gonna do this one because it's kind of creamy. So something I do want to point out is while you're working on yourself, remember to be a parent. Remember to pay attention to your children. Remember that even though you need to fill your cup before you fill theirs, you also made the choice to have children. So you have to be open-minded and aware that they're going to need you. Well, that kind of sucks because I'm bleeding a little. Make sure to be easy on yourself, because we had to be parents to ourselves and learn how to parent our children that weren't raised the same way we were. And that's a lot of work. Like a lot of work. So be kind to yourself. I'll try to make sure to do the same for myself. It's not easy. But we will continue this on my next video for sure, because I think it's an extremely important topic to talk about, working on your mental health while being a parent. Because parenting isn't easy as it is. So being a parent when you're working on your mental health and you got a lot of things you have to work on is kind of hard. So this is a final look. I don't know if you could see it very well. I did my hair and my makeup, but I kept it very basic. And it was just because, you know, if I'm being honest, I came on here because of my guilt of not doing my other videos like I normally do, and I needed to just get back on track. So I almost feel like I'm starting over, even though I know I'm not. It's a work in progress, work in progress. I hope everyone has an amazing day. Come back to see me next week, and we will have a better topic. Well, not a better topic. Come back to see me next week because we are going to continue this topic, which is working on your mental health while being a parent. And I think it's really important that we do that because our kids need us, our family needs us, and we need to work on ourselves for ourselves, but also for our children and our little family at home. Whether you are a single mother or a single father, or, you know, you are with your significant other and you both need to work on yourselves. It is extremely important that you recognize the things that you need to work on for yourself, and also recognize the things that you need to work on as a parent, because there's things that you need to work on for yourself as an individual, but there's also things that you need to work out as a parent and to work on. And we're never going to master being a parent, but we can get better at it, and we can fix the mistakes that we've made in the past as a parent and move on, and try not to dwell on our mistakes that we made in the past as a parent, because it's the past. What's done is done. You can't change the past, and that's something I definitely need to work on all the time. I dwell on the past, and if I'm being honest, it's a waste of energy to dwell on the past. You cannot change the past. What's done is done, and I need to learn how to accept it. However, I'm not good at that. I'm not good at that at all. I'm a dweller. I dwell on the past all the time, and I can't even tell you why. I think it's because most of my life I lived on a lot of what if. So what if this wouldn't have happened to me? I would have been this person. Well, that's a waste. So just work on yourself. Be better for yourself and your family. And like I said, I will do some research and try to look into more things for next week. So this won't be all over the place. But like I said, I like to be raw, and I like to be myself, and I like to be as transparent as possible. And if my videos are, I'm going to change that. When my videos become more popular and more viral and more seen, I want people to see that during this process of me starting my channel, that there was a lot of ups and downs, and there was a lot of random videos that made sense and didn't make sense, or made sense to the people who think the same way I do. Whatever the case is, I want there to be an understanding out there that life isn't easy and things happen and we got to figure it out, and it's okay. And remember to ask for help. Remember, you do not have to be alone. There is no manual on how to be you, because you are the only you. So happy Wednesday. I will see you guys next week. And I will say I am sorry that it is all over the place, but I will also say that I am grateful that I'm not not putting my information out there because I wanted it to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. So I am proud of myself today for doing this and still being able to post it, knowing that it isn't what I wanted it to be and it isn't what I envisioned it to be. However, it is okay that it isn't perfect. I don't think any of my videos has ever been perfect, but it's okay that it's not up to the standards that I wanted it to be at this point, because it's okay. There's a beginning to everything, and I am trying to learn how to live this new life and navigate the way this new normal is going to be now that my dad / grandfather is no longer in my life. And it's changed me. And I know I will never be who I was before he passed, but that doesn't mean that I have to allow myself to go down a bad path, if that makes sense. So I will talk to you guys later. Remember to subscribe. Remember to like the video. Remember to be there for yourself and others. And remember to constantly work on your mental health and be kind to yourself. Okay? Bye.